Ladies and gentlemen, our guest is a man who smashed skyscrapers, saved the world, and did it all with his signature smirk. Bruce Willis, Jimmy Kimmel proclaimed, and the studio erupted in applause. The orchestra struck up the familiar tune from Die Hard, and Bruce stepped onto the stage. His broad shoulders and confident stride radiated strength, but his eyes, narrowed as if before a dangerous scene, betrayed a hint of wariness. He shook Kimmel's hand, gave him a brief hug, and sat on the couch adjusting his dark jacket. The audience chanted, "Bruce! Bruce!" He raised a hand in a curt wave, his smile warm but his gaze vigilant, as if sizing up a battlefield. Jimmy Kimmel, charismatic and sharp-tongued, leaned back in his chair, holding his note cards. His grin was wide, but with a faint predatory edge, and a quick glance at his cards betrayed that he had more in mind than a friendly chat. "Bruce, welcome to the show," he began, his voice friendly but laced with a challenge. "You're an icon, the die-hard himself. Tell us, what's a day in the life of Bruce Willis like? What keeps you in such great shape? Kale smoothies? Protein bars? Or maybe just Hollywood magic?" The audience laughed, and Bruce grinned back, leaning casually against the couch. "Jimmy, I'm not one for chewing grass," he replied, his raspy, confident voice filling the studio. "A juicy steak, some fries, strong coffee, that's enough to keep me ready to knock down walls. And the gym, of course. Gotta stay sharp to fend off guys like you when they start calling me a dinosaur." The studio roared with laughter, but a slight edge in his joke hinted that he sensed this was just the warm-up. Kimmel nodded, his smile widening, his eyes glinting like a hunter spotting prey. "Steak, that's the spirit. But Bruce, there's talk that stars of your caliber practically live in the gym to maintain that, leading man charm. You were once at the top, but now, let's just say you're more like a cool uncle who forgot where he parked his pickup. What's it like to be a legend who might be losing his shine?" The question hit like a grenade. The audience gasped. Someone in the front row covered their mouth. The camera zoomed in on Bruce's face. His jaw tightened. His eyes flashed with a steely glint. Backstage, Emily, his agent, froze, clutching her phone so hard the case cracked. She knew Bruce had agreed to the show to promote a new film, not to face this. In the control room, the director grabbed his head, whispering into his mic, "Jimmy, are you trying to get us all fired?" Bruce leaned back slowly, his smile gone, leaving only a cold stare. "Losing my shine, Jimmy?" His voice was quiet but pulsed with danger, like the calm before an explosion. "I was making movies when you were still learning to hold a mic. I created stories people quote for years. And you? Chasing cheap headlines to keep your ratings from tanking?" The audience erupted in cheers, a few jumping to their feet. Kimmel flinched for a moment but quickly regained his composure, his smile turning sharper. "Wow, Bruce, don't get too heated," he said, raising his hands in mock surrender, though his eyes gleamed with satisfaction, as if this was exactly what he wanted. "I'm just voicing what people whisper in the halls. Like, they say your roles these days are what's left after everyone else passes. That's gotta sting, right? A legend stuck in forgettable action flicks." It was a second, harder blow. The audience gasped louder. Someone whistled. The operator filming Bruce jerked the camera nervously, capturing his reaction. Willis leaned forward, his fingers digging into the couch's armrest, his gaze so piercing it seemed it could punch through a wall. The studio fell silent, broken only by the faint click of overhead spotlights. A thought flashed through Bruce's mind. "This guy wants a show? I'll give him a show." In the control room, the producer shouted, "Cut to commercial, now!" But Bruce didn't look away. His voice dropped low, sharp as a blade. "You want to talk about my career, Jimmy? I made films people watch when they need hope. I give them something real, not empty jabs for tweets. What will you leave behind? 5 minutes of laughs before they change the channel?" The studio exploded in applause, people standing and cheering. Kimmel's composure cracked for a moment. His smile faltered like thin ice, but he quickly pulled himself together. "Bravo, Bruce, that was powerful," he said, his voice trembling with tension. "But we've got time for one more question." The tension in the studio became unbearable. Cameras hummed, operators scrambled, and chaos reigned in the control room. Bruce sat motionless, his gaze piercing Kimmel like John McClane waiting for his enemy's final move. The audience held its breath, sensing the show was teetering on the edge of an explosion. "Well, Bruce, I'll admit, you can take a punch," Kimmel said, leaning back in his chair with forced ease. His voice wavered slightly, but he gripped his note card like a shield against the brewing storm. "But let's be real. Die Hard? You're more like soft cookies these days. Isn't it time to admit Bruce Willis isn't needed anymore?" The studio erupted in gasps and whistles, whispers buzzing in the back rows. The camera caught Bruce's face. His eyes blazed with anger, but a flicker of resolve shone through as if Kimmel had just crossed an invisible line. In the control room, the director clutched his head, muttering into his mic, "This is it. We're all done." Backstage, Emily, Bruce's agent, gripped her phone so tightly the plastic case cracked. She was already dialing her lawyer, but her eyes were glued to the monitor where the drama unfolded. Bruce rose slowly from the couch. His movements were calm, but every muscle in his face betrayed the storm inside. The audience fell silent, sensing a moment that would go down in history. He adjusted his jacket, shot a cold glance at Kimmel, and turned to the audience as if addressing the entire world. "You know, Jimmy," he began, his voice low and powerful, filling the studio like rolling thunder. "I was on movie sets when you were still dreaming of holding a mic. I risked my life making films that gave people hope, laughter, and belief in heroes. And you dare say I'm not needed?" The audience erupted in applause, someone shouting, "Bravo, Bruce!" He raised a hand for silence and continued, "You think you can put me down because I'm older? Because I don't chase every role? My career is about stories that inspired people worldwide. It's about respect for those who believed in me. And you, Jimmy? You throw insults for ratings? Who will be remembered? The one who built something or the one who tore it down?" Suddenly, a young man in a stylish suit stood up from the front row, Jake Lawrence, an up-and-coming actor known for a recent superhero blockbuster. The cameras swung to him. "Sorry, Bruce, but that's hypocritical," he shouted, and the studio froze in shock. "You talk about respect, but you ignore young actors trying to break through. You're taking up space that could belong to new talent." The audience gasped. Some clapped, others booed. Kimmel, seizing the moment, smirked as if he'd gained unexpected backup. Bruce turned his gaze to Jake, his eyes narrowing, but he kept his cool. "Kid, I earned my place with sweat and blood," he said, his voice growing even firmer. "I'm not holding anyone's roles, but respect? It's earned through work, not by stealing someone else's shot. You want success? Earn it." The audience roared, drowning out Jake's words. Kimmel sat stunned, his smile cracking like glass. "I'm not soft cookies, Jimmy," Bruce continued, turning back to the host. His voice was sharp as a blade. "I'm the one who stood tall, and I'll stand tall again." He glanced at the audience and added, "And you people deserve respect. Don't let anyone devalue what you believe in." With that, he turned and walked off the stage, his footsteps echoing in the silence that followed the thunderous applause. Kimmel was left alone, his face pale. He tried to joke, "Well, that was dramatic, right?" But the audience responded with awkward silence. The camera caught his rattled expression, and the director finally yelled, "Cut to commercial." The studio descended into chaos. Audience members whispered, operators scrambled, and in the control room the producer clutched his head muttering, "It's a disaster, but the ratings will be insane." Backstage, Emily grabbed Bruce's arm. "You crushed them," she whispered, her eyes gleaming with pride. "But who was that guy?" Bruce shrugged. "Some kid chasing fame at any cost. Like Kimmel." Emily nodded and pulled out her phone. "Vanity Fair wants an interview. This is your chance to set the record straight." Bruce gave a half smile. "Fine, but I'll do it my way." Within an hour, X was ablaze with hashtags. Shoot Team Bruce, Kimmel Exposed, and Jake the Fake. Clips of Bruce's speech racked up millions of views, with comments exploding. "Bruce is a legend. Kimmel and Jake are a disgrace," Sylvester Stallone tweeted. "Bruce, you're always the diehard." Respect Ryan Reynolds added, "That was a knockout. Bruce showed what class looks like." But some backed Jake, writing, "Willis is stuck in the past. Time for new stars. In his dressing room, Kimmel sat alone, staring at a blank TV screen. His producer had warned him the day before, "Ratings are slipping, Jimmy. We need a buzz, or the show's done." He thought provoking Bruce would save his career. But now X was burning with criticism, and advertisers were calling with threats. "I was just doing the show," he muttered. But deep down, he knew he'd overplayed his hand. His X apology, "It was just jokes, people, relax," only poured fuel on the fire. Meanwhile, Bruce's reputation soared. Directors offered new roles, and producers started talking about a die-hard sequel. Emily arranged an interview with Vanity Fair, held a week later in a quiet Los Angeles studio. Bruce, in a gray suit, looked calm, but his eyes remained vigilant. Journalist Allison Craig started cautiously. "Bruce, after the show, the world's divided. Some call you a hero, others a has-been. What do you say?" Bruce smiled, not his John McClane smirk, but a restrained, wise one. "I don't hold a grudge against Kimmel or that kid, Jake," he said, his voice firm but calm. "They did what they thought they had to. Jimmy chased ratings, Jake chased attention, but respect isn't about tearing others down. It's about recognizing their struggle, their legacy. I made stories that gave people hope. And if someone thinks I'm soft cookies, I'll say this: I'm the one who stood tall. And I'll stand tall again." Allison nodded, her pen scribbling furiously. "What would you say to those who think your place should go to the young like Jake?" Bruce looked her in the eye. "Let them break through. But not by tearing others down. I'm not holding their roles. I earned mine. And if they think fame comes from scandals, they're wrong. Fame is when your stories live on after you." The interview spread like wildfire online, cementing Bruce's status as a symbol of dignity. Hashtags Team Bruce and "Yuwa, Respect Willis" dominated X, and "I'm the one who stood tall" went viral. Kimmel posted another apology, but his show's ratings kept plummeting. Jake Lawrence tried defending himself on X, but his tweets drowned in criticism. For Bruce, that night was more than a triumph. It was a reminder to the world. True heroes don't fall.